Do you want to make your own podcast? I would highly suggest Anchor. Anchor is a free website and app that lets you record your podcast from anywhere at any time. You can record in your car, you can record on a train, you can even just record in your home. And with Anchor, you can also cut out parts of your podcast because you can also edit your episodes inside of the Anchor app or website. And also you can add music that is non-copyrighted, so you can just add sounds or music to your episodes that you don't have to worry about the episodes being copyright striked or anything like that. And then Anchor can also distribute your podcast for free. That's right, for free. You can distribute it to Spotify, which most people are listening to right now, and you can basically distribute to any podcast app or website that you can imagine, basically. So if you do want to get started, you can use the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. Again, you can go to the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and tell them High Scores Podcast sent you. Now back to the episode. And welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Now we're going over our Week 10, or at least my Week 10 predictions for the NFL. Now, last week I lost some and won some, as well as you guys. But our final record for here, as the end of Week 9, my record is 85-50, and your guys' record is 78-57. Now heading to our first matchup of Week 10 today on Thursday. The Ravens versus the Dolphins. Now the Ravens coming off of a pretty close win in overtime against the Vikings. It was a pretty interesting game to see there, what happened there. But their offense really showed out in the fourth quarter and overtime, which led to them winning. And then the Dolphins coming off of a win over the Texans, winning 17-9. And that game was basically Dolphins the entire time. And then that's about it for the overview for Week 9 for both teams. Now the Ravens, their offense was really good against the Vikings, and I still think their offense is going to be really good this week against the Dolphins, whose defense hasn't really been that good and hasn't shown that much against really good teams. And they're doing really good against the Texans, but again, the Texans not really the best offensive power. So I think the Ravens should have a pretty good game offensively. And then on the defense, both defenses are kind of weak in the sense of injuries, or in this case, in the Dolphins' case, just not enough talent at the defensive positions. So both defenses I think are going to struggle, but I think the Ravens' defense is a little bit better than the Dolphins' defense. And I have the Ravens winning this one, mainly because of just how complete the Ravens team is compared to the Dolphins. And that's why I have the Ravens winning this one. Now, next matchup, for Week 10, the Buccaneers versus Washington. Now, the Buccaneers and Washington are both coming off of their bye weeks, and they got some rest here. Now, Tampa Bay, in Week 8, before their bye, did end up losing to the Saints 36-27 in a really good defensive game by the Saints, in my opinion, and they did really good at stopping that pass, the passing game of the Buccaneers. That's really good. And then also their defense really couldn't do much against the Saints offense, really at the beginning, when Jameis Winston was playing. And then when he got out, it was a little bit better, but Trevor Siemian was still kind of doing, making up for the loss of Jameis Winston and kind of making his drives. Even though they weren't touchdowns, they did result in some points. So I think the Saints did really good offensively and defensively to stop the Buccaneers. And then as for the Washington football team, Week 8, they did end up losing to the Broncos. So both teams coming off a loss. They lost 17-10, and the Broncos did really good that game. Their offensive power was really good, and their defense was really good in that game. And that was their last game with Von Miller, I believe. Now, in this week, I think the Buccaneers' main thing to attack is just to be more efficient with the ball, protecting the ball a little bit more. Even that was a really surprisingly bad game by Tom Brady, threw a couple weird picks, and just wasn't really doing that good. So really protecting the ball, and especially against this Washington defense, or that defensive line that's really good. Even though the Buccaneers offensive line did good, in those final drives, their offensive line kind of was giving in, and allowing some sacks to be made by the Saints defense. So also holding up the offensive line against that really good Washington defensive line. And then also the Buccaneers need to practice more on defense to see how they can stop an offense from getting into the red zone and ending drives with field goals or points, because that was what really hurt them in that game against the Saints. Now, as for Washington, I think they really need to focus more on ball protection as well, because of that defensive play by the Broncos. They really couldn't do much. And then, again, just getting into the red zone and being able to, get some touchdowns in the red zone and be efficient in the red zone. Now, as for this game, I do have Tampa Bay winning this one by a pretty big margin. The bets have them at, or have the Buccaneers at -9.5, and I do think that's going to go over. I think the Buccaneers are going to cover the spread, just because of that offensive power, and they have some rest. So I do think the Buccaneers will come out with a win. Now, the next matchup in Week 10, the Saints versus the Titans. Now, Saints coming off of a really close loss to the Falcons, losing 27-25. And then the Titans coming off of an impressive win over the Rams, 28-16. Now, the Saints lost this game mainly because of their health at quarterback. Jameis Winston's out for most of the year, or for the year, with his ACL injury. Taysom Hill is also injured before Jameis Winston got injured, and he's been injured for a while. Now Trevor Siemian comes in, third string quarterback, and he wasn't really doing that good against the Buccaneers. I think, they kind of won that game luckily because they had a little bit of, a head start because of Jameis Winston's play, and their offensive play, and then again their defense really held up well. And I'd say the same for this Falcons game, but the Saints really couldn't do anything on offense besides Alvin Kamara, and even then Alvin Kamara, they were kind of stopping him a little bit more than usual, and Trevor Siemian just wasn't completing that many passes. So it was a really tough game offensively for the Saints, and I think that's what led to their loss. Now, as for the Titans and Rams game, this one didn't really look that good for the Titans, as they did lose Derrick Henry the week prior, and they ended up winning this game, and their defense was really good. They were again through the offensive line, sacking Matthew Stafford, forcing the ball out of the pocket, and getting some interceptions as well. And it was a really tough game for the Rams offensively, and the Titans did a really good job at pressuring Matthew Stafford, which I did say would need to happen if the Titans did win this game, is they needed to pressure Matthew Stafford, and they did. And the Titans were able to, carry the win on defense. The offense did really well on the passing game. And it's going to be interesting to see more of what Adrian Peterson can do for the Titans. And it's going to be interesting to see what they can do to replace the loss of Derrick Henry. Now, as for this game, I do have the Titans winning this one. I do think it's going to be close, but the Saints, again, just that offense, especially led by Trevor Siemian, I'm not too sure about how well they're going to do. And the Titans have already proven their defense to be really good against a really good team. So I have the Titans winning this one, but I do think it's going to be really close. Now, the next matchup of Week 10, the Falcons versus the Cowboys. Now, the Falcons coming off of a really big win over the Saints, a division win, winning 27-25. Again, the loss of Trevor Siemian for the Saints, or having Trevor Siemian on the Saints offense, really did hinder the Saints offense, which the Falcons defense did capitalize on. And their offense did surprisingly well. Also that game. Now, and then the Cowboys, surprisingly, they lost against the Broncos 30-16. Just wasn't a really great offensive production for the team. And many people have been saying that Von Miller was the problem in that Broncos defense. And so far, it's looking like it is. And it's a pretty interesting coincidence that Von Miller, once he's traded to the Rams lose, and then the Broncos win. So that was pretty interesting. Pretty interesting storyline that happened last week. But the Cowboys just really couldn't do anything offensively against that good game for the Broncos overall. Teddy Bridgewater had a really good game. Unfortunately, I had him on my fantasy, so that did kind of hurt myself because I think I started Daniel Jones, who didn't have the best game, but they still came out with a win. But I'll talk about that later. But the Broncos had a really good game. The Cowboys just couldn't do much. Now as for this game, the Falcons, I think if they keep their defensive power up again, as they did against the Saints, I think they could do well, even though they're going up against a harder offense, in my opinion, mainly because of Dak Prescott. Even though he didn't have the best game against the Broncos, I think he is still a better quarterback than Trevor Siemian, and he's probably going to be on the offensive side, mainly protect the ball, especially from Trayvon Diggs, who's on pace for at least 17 interceptions this season. So that's going to be interesting to see if he does hit that 17 interception. The Cowboys, I think their offensive play just needs to ramp up. Ezekiel Elliott didn't really have the best game. Dak Prescott didn't have the best game. So, they need to step it up a little bit in this game, even though they are facing a easier defense, I guess, in the Falcons. And then their Cowboys defense, I think they just really need to be able to stop deep threats like Russell Gage, who's been a pretty good deep threat for Matt Ryan. And they did pretty good against stopping the run game against the Broncos, which I think they'll do again this game, especially with Mike Davis. So I do have Dallas winning this one. I think it's going to be a one-score game, definitely, but I think Dallas has a chance to win this one. Now, the next matchup we have for Week 10, the Lions versus the Steelers. Now, the Lions coming off of a bye week, and I think, hopefully they can get something together and come up with a first win. Please. But they are going against a really tough opponent in the Steelers, who just won on Monday against the Bears, and that was a really close game. I think the Steelers had a really good defensive matchup in the beginning, in the first half, and their offense was doing really good, but is near the end is when they started to give up those points, and it got really close at the end, and it was a really bad game officiating wise, definitely, even though I was rooting for the Steelers defense because I had them on my fantasy team. Really bad officiating game by the Bears, or by the refs in this game. A lot of missed calls on the Bears offensively, and then a lot of just weird calls that they made against the Bears. So it wasn't really that good of a game for the officiating. It was really bad. They're calling different things, and it just was a whole bad thing. But it's been happening for a while. Just these calls have been making them lose the game. So it's been tough. They kind of gave up a lot of points defensively just near the end of the game, and the Bears almost got it, but the Steelers were able to keep the ball and able to run the clock down, and that's what led to the Bears losing. Now, I believe the bets have this one at an 8.5 or -8.5 for the Steelers, and I do think this is going to be a pretty close game in my opinion. I definitely don't think that the Steelers are going to cover the spread, but I do have the Steelers winning this one though. I don't think they're going to cover the spread, mainly because I think the Lions, they've been getting some really close wins over some really good teams, and then they've been losing to, they either get blown out or it's really close. So I do think this one's going to be a close game. I do think they're going to be able to get some pressure on Ben Roethlisberger, but the Steelers' offense is really high-powered. Chase Claypool may be out for this game. I did see that he could be out. I've heard that he's a day-to-day basis. And Juju Smith-Schuster is obviously on IR, which does not help the Steelers' offense because he is a really good threat for that offense. Now, the Lions, they haven't really been doing good with the passing game. In my opinion, I don't think the Lions should start Jared Goff anymore. He just isn't passing the ball accurately. He hasn't passed the ball over like 20 yards this season. He just keeps doing check downs, and then he's not going against any pressure. He just either throws it away or he just falls down and takes the sack for a loss of yards instead of trying to make a play out of it. But the rushing game, really good. DeAndre Swift, I believe Jamal Williams may be back in this game, which definitely did hurt the Lions offense, week 8 against the Eagles. But I do think Lions will keep it close, but Steelers have a really good offense. Their defense, especially TJ Watt, has been really good at getting pressure, and we know how Jared Goff is against pressure. So I think the Steelers defense is really going to carry the Steelers to this win, but I do think it's going to be close. Now, next game for Week 10, we have the Chiefs versus the Raiders. Now, the Chiefs coming off of a pretty close win over the Packers, and obviously the Packers were missing Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love didn't have the best game. He threw for 1 touchdown, which was pretty good, but he did throw some picks, and it's really hard to fill in the shoes of Aaron Rodgers, obviously, and he just didn't really do that well, but they were able to keep it close, at least. The Chiefs' offense and defense has been interesting, to say the least. They haven't really been executing on things that they would have last year, and I think we've been seeing this so far, this trend, that where they're keeping it really close. That offensive production just hasn't really been that good. And then the Raiders coming off of a surprising loss to the Giants, losing 23-16. It was a close game. They just turned over the ball in the red zone late in that game, the last play of the fourth quarter. Derek Carr was going for a pass, and Giants recovered it, and that was basically the end of the game. For this game, again, I think the Raiders, they need to produce in the red zone. Obviously, that was a big issue for their game against the Giants. They weren't scoring touchdowns as often as they should have for their red zone trips. And then they were mainly just settling for field goals, which is not good. If you're going against the Giants offense, who was surprisingly really high powered, they're going at a fast pace, good game, rushing wise. So the Giants really, I think, they're underestimated, and they were able to, stop the Raiders offense. That defense is really good. They ended up getting a pick six as well, which was kind of a main factor as to why the Giants did win, because of that pick six. It's going to be hard to go against the Raiders defense, especially with that offensive power. They had a really tough time against the Packers, and I think they're going to have another tough game against the Raiders defense. Max Crosby has been really good. Casey Hayward, Trayvon Hobbs. It's been a really good, really good year for the Raiders defense. Their offense, they're gonna meet another tough defense in the Chiefs. But I do think they're gonna be able to withstand the Chiefs defense, mainly because, they've also not been doing that well. Now, for this game, I do have the Raiders winning this one. I think it's going to be a really good game, but I do think the Raiders are going to kind of pull it away at the end, mainly because the Chiefs' offensive production has been down lately, and they haven't really been producing much, and they haven't really been producing well against pretty good defenses, or at least decent defenses. But yeah. Now, the next matchup of Week 10, we have the Browns versus the Patriots. Now, the Browns coming off of an impressive win over the Bengals, winning 41-16. And then the Patriots coming off of a win against the Panthers, winning 24-6. Now the Browns had a really good defensive game against the Bengals. They were able to lock down Jamar Chase. Obviously, the 99-yard pick six by Denzel Ward. That was a really good interception and defensive play there. And then, obviously, the Patriots, their offense was really good, even though Mac Jones did throw a pick to Stephon Gilmore. That was nice to see there. But Patriots overall had a really good game. Their defense is really good against Sam Darnold. And they were able to win. They were able to stop Christian McCaffrey winning. Now as for this game, two really good defenses, two young defenses going together, and two pretty young offenses. Now, earlier this week, we did hear that Nick Chubb will be out because he did end up getting COVID-19. So he will be out of this game, and that is leaving the Browns with one running back, I believe. I'd have to see who their running back is that they have. I believe it's Kareem Hunt, but I'm not sure. I'd have to see. But it is definitely going to be interesting to see what the Browns do to cover up the loss of Nick Chubb, even though they did end up losing it for a couple weeks, and they were pretty good with him. Obviously, the loss of Odell didn't hurt them. Donovan Peoples-Jones, who stepped in really nicely, like I said, would happen. I thought he's a really good wide receiver at Michigan. I was seeing him at Michigan as a Michigan fan. He's a really good wide receiver. I knew he was going to be a vertical threat like Odell is, and how the Browns were using him. He fit in nicely with the Browns defense or offense, and was able to go against the Bengals. And it was really nice to see him out there. And the Bengals just really couldn't do much, offensively or defensively against the Browns. But see what Nick Chubb, the loss of Nick Chubb does do to that Browns offense. And they're going up against a tough defense in the Patriots, who did really good against the Panthers. They've been on, some kind of winning streak, and they've been really good so far. So I do think the Patriots are going to win this one. It's going to be really close, definitely really close. I think it's going to be a really, really, really close game. But I have the Patriots winning this one. Okay, now the next matchup for Week 10, we have the Bills versus the Jets, AFC East divisional matchup. So it's going to be an important win for either the Bills or the surprising loss against the Jaguars. And the Jets. The Jets coming off of a surprising loss, or not surprising loss, just a loss against the Colts, losing 40. The Jets offense did really well. Ty Johnson did good. Michael Carter did good. John Johnson coming in as like fourth string. The Jets quarterback, debacle is really crazy, but I think that's their fourth string quarterback, Johnson. And he did surprisingly well. They just couldn't get a win against a tough Colts defense. And then the Bills surprisingly just couldn't win against the Jaguars. Their defense was really good. Josh Allen for the Jaguars, not for the Bills. Josh Allen did really good this game. He got an interception, a sack, and a touchdown. I believe that was like the first time since 2013 that a defensive player got all three of those, I believe. So that was a really good accolade for Josh Allen. I believe this is only his third year. I believe he was drafted a year after the Bills, Josh Allen. So, really good game by Josh Allen. He led this Jaguars defense. The Jaguars defense is really good. They were forcing turnovers, getting sacks, just were limiting the Bills' defense to only 6 points. So, really good game for the Jaguars. Now as for this game, the Bills, again, I think they just need to, protect the ball. That's what they weren't doing against the Jaguars. They weren't, going downfield as much. They weren't executing in the red zone, which led to them getting only 2 field goals. So, I do think in this game they need to make sure they don't get any turnovers, or at least limit the turnovers that they have, and get in the red zone and score some touchdowns. Now as for the Jets, they're doing really good. I mean, it's kind of tough playing with your fourth string quarterback, but they were doing really good against the Colts. I think if they have the same formula, and it's against, kind of the same defense with the Bills. I believe the Bills and the Colts defense is kind of at the same level. So I think the Jets, if they go by the same formula that they had against the Colts, I think they have a chance to win this one. But I do think the Bills are going to win this one. I do think, they're going to come back, looking for some blood, definitely after losing to the Jaguars. So I do think they're going to go against the Jets, and they're going to pull out a win. Now, our next matchup, funny enough, is with the Jaguars and the Colts, who just played both of the teams I just talked about, with the Bills and Jets. Obviously, the Jaguars winning against the Bills, mainly because of their defensive ability to stop the Bills' offense, and the Colts beating the Jets. And their Colts' offense was really good, just their defense wasn't doing enough at the end of the game, but they still were able to pull out a win against the Jets. And as for this game, I think if the Jaguars again have the same formula as they did against the Bills, getting sacks, forcing turnovers, and at least doing decent enough on offense to get some points, I think the Jaguars will have a really good game. The Colts, if their defense doesn't slack off in the last quarter of the game, I do think the Colts could extend a lead here. And in this game, I do have the Colts winning, mainly because of the offensive power. I do think their offense is going to be harder to stop for the Jaguars, mainly because the offensive line is really good, one of the best in the league, in my opinion, if fully healthy. So I think the Colts are going to win this one, and I think the Jaguars just won't be able to stop the Colts offense. Now, the next matchup for Week 10, we have the Vikings versus the Chargers. Now, the Vikings coming off of a crushing loss against the Ravens, losing 31-34 in overtime. Their offense was doing really good at the beginning of the game, but their defense was allowing more points, and they allowed this comeback by the Ravens near the end of the game. And I mean, luckily the Vikings were able to force overtime, or I think the Ravens were able to force overtime, and then again the Vikings defense just couldn't do much against that Baltimore offense at the end of the game. And then the Chargers in a surprising win over the Eagles, a really close win, 27-24 off of a game-winning field goal. And this is a really good game. I think it's going to be a really good game. The Vikings, again, their offense has surprisingly been really good so far in the season. And then the Chargers, they're coming back after a 2-game skid, and they were able to get back and beat the Eagles. So I think this is going to be a really good game. I do have the Chargers winning this one. I think it's going to be close, but the Chargers offense is really good. Their defense could do a little bit more. I do think it's going to be a battle of high-powered offenses, but I do have the Chargers winning this one, even though I think it's going to be a close one. Now, the next matchup is the Panthers versus the Cardinals. Now, the Panthers coming off of a loss against the Patriots, losing 24-6, and the Cardinals coming off of a win over the 49ers, 31-17. And the Panthers just made some news today, as of recording this video, or podcast episode. Cam Newton has just reunited with the Panthers, and so this could mean that the Panthers have a better team now. Definitely because Sam Darnold is going to be out, and I thought they were going to start P.J. Washington for this game against the Cardinals. Now, I'm not sure if Cam Newton will play against the Cardinals. I'd have to check. I believe it's like a whole week after you sign somebody, just because of the COVID protocol. So there is a possibility that he isn't playing on Sunday, but it will be nice to see if he does play against the Cardinals, whose defense is really good. Chandler Jones, obviously, against the 49ers, he was doing really good. And Chandler Jones again, just he's doing really good with the sacks, and on the defense. And this was a surprising win, even though I did predict the Cardinals to win this one over the 49ers. It was a really tough game to predict, mainly because of Kyler Murray being injured, and D-Hop, I believe, was out of that game as well. So they were heavily injured. Their stars were out of the game, and they were still able to win the game. Surprisingly, Colt McCoy did really good. James Conner had a really good game. Chase Edmonds had a really good game. Christian Kirk had a really good game. So I think the Cardinals have some weapons here. And even if they did miss out on having DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray, they still were able to win and put up 30 plus points. So, I think the Cardinals have a really good team, built, right now. So I think they're definitely in win mode. And then the Panthers, just, their defense, they did pretty good, but, obviously the loss of Sam Darnold, I believe late in that game, and then, they just weren't able to do much on offense. So, that really hurt the Panthers. Now, it will be interesting to see if Cam Newton does play in this game. That could change my prediction for this one. But I do have the Cardinals winning this one pretty handedly. I think the Cardinals have a really good team, even without Kyler Murray or D-Hop. They still put up 30 plus. And then the Panthers just really couldn't do much on offense. Christian McCaffrey was being stopped, and that Cardinals rush defense is really good. So I do think the Panthers are going to have a tough time against the Cardinals. That's why I predict the Cardinals to win this one. Now the next matchup is the Eagles versus the Broncos. Now the Eagles losing really close one against the Chargers, losing 27-24, and then the Broncos winning a really good game pretty handily against the Cowboys. Now that Broncos defense, I had some doubts mainly because of the loss of Von Miller, but surprisingly they did really good. And they were able to stop a high-powered Cowboys defense. So it was a really good job by the Broncos, being able to stop them. And then the Eagles just really couldn't stop the Chargers offense from going downfield, tied 24-24. And then the Chargers obviously winning that one with a game-winning field goal. And the Eagles lost 27-24. Now as for this game, I have Philadelphia winning this one. I think they're going to come back as a better team. And maybe that was a fluke by the Broncos defense. Who knows? But I think Philly could definitely come out with a close win over the Broncos. Definitely. If Jalen Hurts does play really good, and if Boston Scott and Jordan Howard play really good, I think the Eagles could get a close win over the Broncos. That's why I have the Eagles winning this one. Now the next matchup in Week 10, Sunday night game, or actually no, not Sunday night game. Or no, yes, a Sunday night game, sorry. I was reading the wrong game. Sunday night game, Seahawks versus the Packers. Now the Seahawks coming off of a bye week, and fully rested. Russell Wilson could play in this one most likely. I believe he was cleared to play Week 10, which is this week, or earlier this week. He was cleared to play, so it does look like he's going to be cleared to play. So I would look out for a really good game by Tyler Lockett this game, if Russ is going to play. And then the Packers coming off of a close loss over the Chiefs, or against the Chiefs. They just couldn't really produce much on offense. Now it is looking like Aaron Rodgers could be out for this game as well, so Jordan Love might play this game. I'm not sure. I did hear that Aaron Rodgers could miss out on this one, but if Jordan Love is playing, I definitely think it's going to be a loss for the Packers on this one, just because the offensive production against the Chiefs just wasn't good at all. So it's going to be tough to see what they do. And then obviously the Seahawks getting their number one quarterback back is going to be really tough for the Packers defense. And I expect really good games from both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and a really good game from the Seahawks defense, coming off of a bye week. Now I believe Vegas has it at -3.5, interestingly, for the Packers. So I definitely think if you are betting on this game, I definitely take that Seahawks bet right away, just because of how how they're favoring the Packers. So this should be a pretty easy game to bet on. I'm not sure if anything's changing as of right now, but if you are betting, I would hurry up and bet on this one before it favors the Seahawks, because Seahawks, again, I think they have all the leverage over the Packers, and the Packers possibly aren't playing Aaron Rodgers, and even if they do play with Aaron Rodgers, I'm not sure how well the Packers offense will be able to play. So I think the Seahawks are going to be able to beat the Packers this one, but I do think it's going to be close either way. Now, the last game for Week 10, Monday Night Football, we have the Rams versus the 49ers. Now, the Rams, coming off of a surprising loss on Sunday Night Football against the Titans, losing 28-16. And then the 49ers coming off of a loss against the Cardinals. So both teams coming off a loss, looking for a win. Looking to come back with a win. And the Rams, their offensive line just was not holding up against that defensive line, the Titans defensive line, which I didn't even know they had that good of a defensive line until this game. And they were just blowing through the offensive line of the Rams and just didn't look good at all. So, I think if they, work on protecting Matthew Stafford a lot more, they're going to be able to win a lot more games. And then their defense just wasn't really looking that well. I think maybe once they put Von Miller in, maybe it's going to be a little bit better, but so far just hasn't looked that good for the Rams on defense against the Titans. Now, as for the 49ers, obviously, a lot of people were expecting them to win, mainly because of the Cardinals losing Kyler Murray and D-Hop, but they weren't able to win this one, and their offensive line, again, was having some troubles. The 49ers really just couldn't produce in this game. But the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo did at least pretty decent. Here he went 28 for 40, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But he was sacked 5 times, which was a big thing for that Cardinals defense. They were able to get back in the backfield a lot easier, and they just couldn't do much. Elijah Mitchell on the run game, again, they couldn't do much. 8 rushes for 36 yards. And I think they only had a combined 11 rushes in the entire game. So not that good, and I think a total of about 39 yards, rushing yards in the game. Wasn't that good. George Kittle did have a really good game with 6 receptions and 101 yards with 1 touchdown, and 8 targets. Brandon Ayuk had a pretty good game. I think receiving wise they had a really good game, but again, those sacks really hurt them, and they weren't able to do much on the rush game. So that was a really big hit for the 49ers. And as for this game, I think if the Rams work on protecting Matthew Stafford, they should be good. And then with the 49ers, again, protecting their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, that's going to definitely help them. And, playing a little bit better on that rush defense for the 49ers would be really big. But I do have the Rams winning this one. I think it's going to be a close one, but I do have the Rams coming out with the win. And that'll be all for my week predictions. Leave your predictions down in the comments below, or vote on the polls on the Instagram. I will have it linked below. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Veterans Day.